Welcome back to the Yakut Yosef series of Ashkamat Boker. In the previous video, we covered halachot 1 and 2 and what mentality to wake up with in the mornings. BeEzrat HaShem, we're going to be covering halachot 3 to 7 and a few other very interesting topics. Let's jump right into it. Siman 1 halacha 3. It's very important to rise from bed early enough to prepare oneself properly for the prayers, meaning one must allow enough time to relieve himself before attending the synagogue. The sages teach us that one who needs to relieve himself is in fact prohibited from praying, since the need to relieve himself is likely to disrupt his concentration. In addition, it's just not proper to come to pray before Hashem when one's body is made repulsive by the waste that he contains. Even if he's unsure whether or not he needs to relieve himself, it's best that he at least try before beginning to pray. The sages support this statement with the verse, Israel, prepare to meet your God. It's also written in Kohelet 4:17, guard your foot when you go to the house of God, to make sure that you don't need to relieve yourself at the time that you are standing to pray before Hashem. There's much more details in regards to this, but will be covered in later halachot BeEzrat HaShem. This is why back in the day, a lot of communities had an individual that they would appoint known as the waker. The waker would go door to door, making sure that everyone wake up and make it to the synagogue on time. The Mishnah Berurah writes that one has to wake up at least 30 minutes before the waker makes his rounds, so that everyone will have enough time to make any necessary preparations that are needed before attending the synagogue. Here the Yakut Yosef doesn't mention the 30-minute window on the halacha, because nowadays everyone has a restroom in their house. They have running water available and pretty much everything else they need. Back in the day, they didn't have these advantages. Back in the day, they didn't have these luxuries. Toilets were located outside of the city, which in some cases took people 30 minutes just to get there, which was literally a hole in the ground. So it's not mentioned here, because generally today, it's really only a few minutes of preparation time that's needed for the average person. So today, we don't have the waker. Today we have our phones, we have alarm clocks, wake-up service. Our kids can often do a great job of waking us up in the mornings. So it's important to get up early enough with enough time for us to prepare, get in the car, walk, in order to make it on time. The Rambam in Chod Yot 4:4 writes that one should get at least 8 hours of sleep each night. The day consists of 24 hours. It's enough that a person sleeps 1/3 of that time, which is 8 hours. The window of sleeping should consist of an average of 6 to 8 hours, depending on the individual. Needless to say, a person should still make sure he has enough time to make his preparations and fight any Yetzer Hara that may interfere along the way. Next, Siman 1 halacha 4. A person has to accustom himself to run to accomplish mitzvot. We have to practice this until it becomes second nature to us. Some people like to sleep late in the mornings. They take their time and then they run to the synagogue, leaving it for the last minute. This running, however, is not a display of zrizut, which is being quick and agile to perform mitzvot. These people run only because they procrastinated until the last minute, and now they want to run to catch the minimum of prayers they can in the synagogue. It continues and says that a person shouldn't sleep too much or engage in any forms of relaxation that's more than necessary. We have to train ourselves to run to fulfill the mitzvot, even if a person is wealthy. He shouldn't allow himself more comfort than necessary. In the end, all of a person's wealth will be left behind. The only possessions he'll be able to take with him is the Torah and mitzvot, which the reward is eternal. I want to elaborate on the importance of zrizut, being quick and agile to perform mitzvot. In the previous video, we discussed how one should be swift as a deer and how we should run to perform mitzvot. But we have to be cautious and not take pride in the fact that we run every day to pray and study, even if we make this a habit. See, a deer certainly doesn't take pride in his natural ability to run. The deer's ability to run is a part of its nature. We also should make it a part of our natural ability and make it a part of us as a person and form it in our cores. Tehillim 119:60 says, I hurried and I didn't delay, meaning I run to perform the mitzvah, but not because I procrastinated until the last minute. I run even when there is plenty of time, since I have such great love for the mitzvot. Shlomo HaMelech said in Mishloach 6:6, lazy one, go to the ant, watch its ways, and grow wise. See, the ant needs no more than 1/2 kernels of wheat its entire lifetime, but still the ant never stops gathering more and more of whatever it can find. This is their nature. So too should be for us. We have to learn from the ant. And the same way it never stops accumulating food until the day of its death, we have to train ourselves in having the same nature, to collect more and more mitzvot at every opportunity. Rabbeinu Menachem HaMeri Comment to Brachot 3b. One has to rise early enough on a daily basis to study rather than lay in bed and indulge in extra unnecessary sleep. As we said above, even if a person becomes wealthy in his lifetime, he shouldn't allow it to change his routine, because in the end all of a person's wealth will be left behind, and only the Torah he engaged in and the mitzvot he's collected is the reward he's going to receive. As explained in the previous video, King David was involved in many responsibilities of government, but nothing turned him away from his service to Hashem. Rising at midnight on a daily basis and studying until the break of dawn. Keeping his routine solid, he never moved an inch and stayed glued to Hashem. He never let anything get in the way. Siman 1 Halacha 5. Modeh ani is the first thing we say as soon as we wake up. The verse is as follows. Modeh ani lefenecha melech chai v'kayam she'achsachta bi nishmati b'chemla Rabba imunatecha. Translation: I thank you, O living and eternal King, for restoring my soul with compassion. Your trustworthiness is abundant. The correct way to recite it is to pause after the words Nishmati bechemla. The words Rabba imunatecha is a separate sentence and shouldn't be combined. Some say that women should say modah in the feminine form rather than modeh in the male form. The Alechot Shalom says that Harav Shalom Zalman Auerbach instructed the women and girls in his family to say modah in the feminine form and not modeh in the male form. The Mo Uktzia Nchida ruled that prayers should not be changed to any particular form, whether recited by a man or woman, and should rather leave it the way it is, since each vow has great Kabbalistic significance. In any case, one should follow the custom of their community. The Talmud in Brachot 57b says that since the person's soul goes up to heaven each night, sleep is considered 1/60th of death. One's day should begin by thinking about God's kindness of allowing him or her to wake up every morning refreshed and revitalized. Therefore, modeh ani should be recited immediately, even before washing the hands. Rabbi now says that each morning a person should be seized by fear of his Creator. He should think how God performed the kindness of protecting him through the night and restoring his soul, and that we shouldn't remain in bed in the manner of a lazy person. Instead, we should get up quickly. The Zohar states that we have to praise and thank Hashem for returning our souls to our bodies. Without Hashem's protection, every single night our souls are in serious danger. If we only understood what goes on around us, we would honestly be terrified. Just because something isn't seen doesn't mean that it's not there. Brachot 6a teaches something very interesting. Abba Binyamin says, if the eye was given permission to see, no creature would be able to withstand the abundance of demons that surround us, and how we continue to live unaffected by them. Abaya said, they're more numerous than us, and they stand over us like mounds of earth surrounding a pit. Rav Huna said, each and every one of us has 1,000 demons to his left and 10,000 to his right, but God protects us from these demons. As it says in TZADIKIM 91:7, 1,000 may fall at your left side and 10,000 at your right, but to you they will not approach. This is what that verse is referring to. If anyone has any doubts about this, it goes on and tells us how a person can actually accomplish seeing these demons. But you should know that one of the sages performed the procedure once, and he was successful, and he was harmed. The sages all had to gather together and pray for mercy on his behalf, and miraculously he was healed. All this is happening while we're awake, when we're more or less in control of our bodies and souls. But when we sleep at night, there's more activity with these demons, and they have more power to cause harm to our souls that are out of the protective shell, which is our bodies, when we're ascending to heaven to give an accounting of all the deeds we did that day. We should be very thankful that our souls are returned safely and in fact to the correct body. Midrash Chidim 25:2 states that it never happened that God couldn't find a particular person's soul when it was time to restore it. He never made the mistake and restored the wrong soul to the wrong body. This is pure kindness from Hashem. The halacha continues and says, it's permissible to recite modeh ani even before performing Netilat Yadayim. Since it doesn't contain God's name in any form, it can be recited while one's hands are unclean. We need to know that beginnings are extremely important. It's very significant to sanctify the beginning of each day for God's honor. One's first thoughts, first words, first steps should be directed toward fulfilling Hashem's will. If we do this, the rest of the day will more likely follow suit. So before we go to sleep each night, we should prepare a wash cup in an empty basin and place it at our bedside, and make sure not to place it underneath the bed. The Gemara in Pesachim 112a states that if any foods or beverages are left under a bed, even if they are enclosed in a vessel made of iron. An evil spirit rests upon them, and it's prohibited to partake of it. This ruling is cited by the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch as the final halacha. The procedure of Netiyat Yadayim is as follows. After reciting modeh, you pick up the cup with the right hand, place it in the left hand, wash the right hand all the way to the wrist, give it to the right hand, wash the left hand, and this is repeated for a total of 3 times. It's important to note that one has to discard the water as soon as possible and place it where people don't walk or travel. Pouring it in a sink or the toilet is perfectly fine. The water contains impurities of the sleep that are left on a person's hands and could cause harm to people who step on it or even walk over it. Can we recite modeh in an unclean place such as a bathroom? The Yalkut Yosef ruled that it is permissible to recite modeh even in an unclean place. Rav Chaim Kanievsky also ruled that it is permissible to recite modeh in an unclean area. A lot of other opinions are on the fence in regards to this. Although modeh is a prayer of praise and appreciation to Hashem, there's no mention of Hashem's name in it, so one may recite modeh even before he washes his hands, and even if his hands are dirty. By the same token, Eretz Yisrael allows the recitation of modeh in an unclean area such as a bathroom. However, Yaron disagrees and considers modeh to have the same status as words of Torah, which may not be said in a bathroom or an unclean place. Nevertheless, it's forbidden to recite any words of Torah in the vicinity of human feces, but it is permissible to think about a subject in such a location, but not inside the restroom. So, the safest and best way approved by the majority is to say it as soon as one wakes up, and with enough times it would become second nature to the person. Siman 1 Halacha 6. Modeh in regards to children. As soon as the child knows how to speak, it's praiseworthy for the parents to train him or her to recite modeh and perform Netiyat Yadayim when he or she wakes up. Nowadays they have wash cups and receptacles made for kids, and it makes it fun for them and influences them to want to do it. Last, Siman 1 Halacha 7. Similar to the earlier halacha, that one should get up as soon as possible and begin to engage in God's service. We discussed how one should get up quickly and with alacrity. However, one should note that when getting up, it's not safe to just hop out of bed the moment one opens his eyes. This could be dangerous and injurious to a person's health. It says here that we should remain in a seated or an inclined position long enough to recite modeh and only then proceed to get up without delay. We shouldn't take our time to check our emails, Facebooks, Instagrams, TikToks. It's better not to have any social media to begin with. We have to be careful not to get stuck and trapped by the Yetzer Hara. Next thing we know, 20 minutes passed and we're still scrolling through the feed, still laying in bed. The sages teach something very interesting. In Gittin 70a, it says that there are 5 behaviors that bring a person closer to death. Getting up too quickly after eating and drinking, getting up immediately after giving blood, jumping up immediately after sleeping, and jumping up immediately after marital relations. So although it tells us to jump out of bed immediately, it should be in a reasonable manner. Not too fast, not too slow. There are many opinions in regards to this topic, but the Yalkut Yosef's ruling is that one should get up in a gradual manner. The Andeh Paz challenged this entire law, insisting that as long as one's intentions are to serve Hashem faithfully, no danger will fall upon him. In conclusion, our thoughts should always be on our service to Hashem. If we're diligent in following these halachot and starting our day right, the rest of the day will follow as long as our focus is on our avodat Hashem. Hashem loves those who fear Him. Hashem protects those He loves. Shlomo HaMelech promises us in Kohelet 8:5 that he who observes a mitzvah will know no evil, and a wise mind will know time and justice.